Okay, great.
Hello and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live by Experience Care. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I'm excited today because I get to talk with the founder of SchedulePop, Ben Wingrove. Ben, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see
Ben,
you.
I'm excited. Likewise, I'm excited to talk to you on many fronts, and I'll kind of prepare the audience for those. One, Experience Care just signed a deal with SchedulePop to help out our customers, but also your entrepreneurial background is interesting. And as a marketer myself, I'm interested in your marketing. So let's get started off with your background. Tell me a little bit how you created SchedulePop. Did you start off in long-term care?
I definitely did not start off in long-term care, but I'll put a quick pin in that just because I did have some exposure to it. And but my background is actually entertainment, and I helped build up a ticketing company. I didn't found the company, but I was part of the original team, like a small equity position in a ticketing company called ETIX. And I spent maybe the last 22 years helping build that company up. And along the way, the founder of ETIX, his name's Travis Janovich. So he and I did some various businesses together along the way. One of them was we decided to buy a music venue / nightclub in Virginia because we wanted to buy it so we could be a customer of ETIX and see what it was like to be a customer. And it seemed like a great idea on paper, and it was wild. It was we probably should have bought one like 1/10 the size. It was 22,000 square feet and 1,500 capacity venue with 3 levels and 7 bars and a restaurant. And
Yeah,
it
that's
was
big.
wild. It was big. And one thing we learned right away that had nothing to do with ticketing was that the staff scheduling really sucked. It was not fun to do. And I begged my wife to handle the scheduling, and she didn't like it. And I would get dirty looks every evening. And so we that's when I started to noodle around and be like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. And what I was trying to do, what was really frustrating to me was, I owned the business, and I would get we would have overtime. We would have a lot of overtime, and I would stomp around, and my wife would just say, like, you can stomp around all you want. We've already spent the money. You're looking at the payroll. And so I was just like, well, why can't like the actionable data just pop up where I need it to see? And that's where the name SchedulePop came from. The idea is to have, while you're working on your scheduling and your staff management, which like particularly in like long-term care, senior care is a very large part of the operating budget, have actionable data pop up so that people can make good business decisions and hopefully save money and provide better care. And then the way it came full circle, so I launched SchedulePop, and I was thinking we would just sign up venues and restaurants and things like that, because that was my background. And but I had a small sales team, and I told them, I was like, sign up anything you want, because I might not know what the best thing is. Let's just see where we fit. And one thing we signed up randomly was a country club, and now we're in like 450 country clubs. But one of the things we signed up was a SNF, and at that time I didn't even know what that meant, and I didn't know the acronym, and so I went and met with them, and I just thought everything could work like for a venue. So I just bebopped into the meeting, and they were talking about census and PPD and PBJ, and like we were talking about before the interview started, Peter. It's just like I was just nodding my head and taking notes, and I had to just go circle the wagons by myself and just ramp up. I felt like they were speaking another language, but we spent a good 18 months, I would say, just adding functionality for the industry. And what I noticed when I walked into the building, I had a lot of familiar feelings, like nostalgic. My dad was a gerontologist, and so I used to go with him, and he used to do his studies and things in different senior care facilities. I remember like spending a lot of time in Westminster, Canterbury, for example, in Richmond, and with him. And this was right before COVID, but the staffing crisis was already like just palpable, like you could see it.
Mhm.
And it just felt like when we met as a team after we'd signed up some of these different things and talked about what we wanted to focus on, it just seemed like such a, not to take anything away from ticketing. I really like ticketing, and entertainment is valuable to people too, but it just seemed like a opportunity to really help people more than, say, it's one thing to help somebody get their Bruce Springsteen ticket, and it's another thing to make sure that, it's
They have a
really
CNA.
serious. Like making sure that these people working on the front lines are, that the care is there for the patients,
Mhm.
and it just seemed like a noble cause, and our whole team lined up behind it.
What was your role when you started to test in new industries? Are you the numbers guy? Are you the marketing guy? Are you also involved in the UX? Where are you? And I'll tell you where I'm going with the question to help you answer it. What are the things you had to adjust to make sure that it lined up with long-term care needs? Did you just have to change the jargon and put in the acronym so people trusted it? Or was there actual pain points in long-term care that you had to adjust in the development?
There's definitely pain points in long-term care that we needed to adjust in the development. My role, like my background is more on the sales side of things, but I also spend a lot of time at the various companies I've worked with, and been a part of, helping with like how we're going to design the software, kind of how the UX is going to work, how the features are going to work. I'm not a developer, and we have a dev team, and but I do spend a lot of time focus grouping with our clients and other people that we can kind of pull into the family to try to figure out not only, okay, what is the feature, but how do we boil that down and just make it dirt simple to use? Just because, like in senior care and long-term care, these folks are so busy, and they're running around a lot of times just with their hair on fire, and this just needs to be a very simple tool they can use while they're on the go whenever possible to solve problems with just a few taps without barely having to change their focus from what's really important.
Schedule Pop is, I think, unique in its marketing and its UX and just being beautiful. So I'm going to ask you to share your screen in a moment, but I want to know, did you start off with these colors more because you came from the social club, the nightlife, or did you adjust this and have some young team on you to make the colors pop as it does?
No, we didn't have any team. It was just really me. Now we have one person in marketing, army of one. We have Brian, who you met, and but we. I always liked. I regarding like logos. I always thought like, and this is my opinion. I'm somebody. You probably have 100 people who could tell me I'm wrong here, but like to me, it's like, why does everything always have to be the same color? If you can set the image up so that that can be memorable, and then you could do all
Mhm.
sorts of things with the colors,
Mhm.
um, and then you could use different colors to kind of create that same look. Like I think of, I like pop art. I think about like the Andy Warhol pieces where he might take the same image but have like lots of different colors in it. There's no mistaking what you're looking at. And that's kind of where it came from.
Would you mind sharing your screen just for those who aren't actually listening to this as a traditional podcast, rather they're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook? Show me a little bit, what the functionality looks like, what your colors look like, to give some context.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know if this is okay.
Yeah, perfect. So I guess let's take a step back and go from the beginning. What is the first and number one problem that you solve? And then tell me what we are as well, what you hear from your customers.
Well, right now, we feel like the number one, when we came into the industry, what I thought we were going to be doing was helping them with overtime and budgeting. But when we got in there, people kind of just laughed and were like, what we learned was that really the number one problem was they were just trying to find staff and trying to fill shifts. And what was happening was, most of the people we're talking to were relying very heavily on agency, which is extremely expensive. And not that there isn't a place for agency at some level as things stabilize, but to rely on that heavily, I just don't see it as a sustainable model. And so our real focus right now with our clients is to help them schedule from the inside out, rather than from the outside in. And what we try to do is give them tools. We want to make it as simple as just ordering a pizza to fill a shift internally with your existing team. And we know you might not fill every shift that way, but every single shift that you can fill internally without going out, it makes it can help with retention. It makes the team stronger. You're helping somebody that works for you pick up extra work that they wanted. You might be helping somebody that needed to get out of a shift without having to call out. And that could prevent an awkward situation that could lead to employee turnover. And you're saving just quite a bit of money, every time. And so, like, just as an example of this, we have a web app that people can work on from, say like their laptop, lots of nice tools to build the schedule and get everything ready and manage things. But once that schedule is published out the door, we have a free staff app for the staff to use and a free manager app for the managers to use as they're, moving around the building. So what you see here, for example, is this is what the manager app looks like. And so just as an example, like when they glance at this, they would see that who they have on the schedule that day working. And say Jill here was scheduled to work, but they don't see her. They can just swipe left and call her or text her right through the app and find out what's going on. And maybe that's a call out. They can tap this one button and the system will automatically create the open shift, notify a filtered list of everybody that can perform Jill's job code and is available to work at that time. And then those folks can pick up the shift. That's a simple example, but what really happens in these buildings a lot is, say Jill had COVID and you're having to quarantine her and she might be on the schedule for 8 shifts during that time. That's when a lot of times that's when the scheduler panics and they're like, oh gosh, there's 8 shifts. I'm going to have to make 97 phone calls. I'm just going to call the agency and it's done with. And then the management of the building, they might not even realize that happened until they saw the payroll and spent, thousands of extra dollars just on, those 8 shifts. And with SchedulePop, that same, they can hit quarantine. Say somebody quit and they were on the schedule for 21 shifts. You hit the one button, auto creates all 21, sends them out. So just the idea is that for it to be really easy to use, like approving a time off request or a swap is just, you can tap on the thumbs up, thumbs down, just simplicity. Same on the staff side, they have an app, they can see the shifts that they're scheduled for. They can see the shifts that are available for them to pick up. Really
Mm.
easy to just tap and manage that, make time off requests, things like that, just easy to do.
Fantastic. That's one of the reasons I know that Experience Care decided to integrate and partner with SchedulePop. Can you tell me a little bit about how one of the added benefits of utilizing SchedulePop also improves satisfaction of staff? I know that didn't start off as your number one focus, but it has been one of the principles, one of the objectives that you all are achieving.
Yeah, I think on the staff side, just being able to just like we're touching on earlier, it can be really frustrating. Um, say you forgot to ask for time off, and then you realize, you know, you your significant other reminded you that you got to be in a wedding, you got to go to a wedding on Thursday. Uh, you know, but they scheduled you for a shift. That's an awkward conversation to have with the manager. And a lot of times people, it's human nature. You put it off, you procrastinate. That can turn into a call out. That can turn into a no call, no show.
Mhm.
Um, it's in some industries, it's not as big a deal. Like at my club, if we were down a bartender, it's just like, oh man, we're down a bartender. It's going to be a little harder. We might not sell as many drinks. It's it's not even an exaggeration to say it can be life or death if you don't have enough RNs, for example, in the building when you're supposed to take care of people. It's a big deal. And so I think it's like just making it easier for them to, they can solve the problem themselves. They can swap the shift and offer it to other people that could pick it up for them, so that they don't even have to get the manager involved until they've already found someone, and the manager would get a notification. They can go, oh yeah, I'll approve that swap.
Mm.
And just so something as simple as that, that might prevent someone from maybe quitting, you know, that type of thing. Because for a lot of these buildings, what we learned was there's really nothing tethering the staff to the building, to the community. So we build in a lot of staff communication tools, so it's easy for management to communicate with the staff, let them know what's going on. Maybe, if there's a hurricane coming through, like there was for a lot of our clients not too long ago, just messaging them really quickly, like in 2 seconds, just like in like 30 seconds, you could send a message and it could text, push notify, email hundreds of employees for your,
Mhm.
for your organization, that type of thing.
Ben, you've grown into long-term care quickly, and I definitely want the listeners to know you're not new. SchedulePop wasn't designed last year. You've been around for quite some time. Give me a little bit about the history, and now how many long-term care facilities are working with SchedulePop?
Yeah, I forgot to mention I didn't really give the timeline on when I was giving you the background. The company actually, like, I really started in 2015 with this. But we didn't really go to there was a few years of me, it was like a hobby project, you know, and so because of that, it's strange. It's almost like we're a startup from a sales and marketing perspective, but we have like much deeper functionality than a startup because we've been doing this for years. And so on the senior care side, unfortunately for us, we signed that first sniff up about a year before COVID started. And excuse me, and then we spent the next year or so, like I was telling you, just adding functionality. Like one of the things we added, just like the integration with Experience Care, which is, pull the census data over, and we have PPD, and if it's a SNF, we have star rating tools so that, it's super easy for the scheduler to schedule against those targets and see what their over under is on where they need to be.
Mm.
We know they're probably not going to stick the landing and just zero that out for every day, but they should at least be given tools that can show them the horizon line and they can steer towards the goal. and move the ship in the right direction, and not just be flying blind. And so it provides a lot of help in those areas. And then so we went to market, and unfortunately, like right in like the beginning of March of 2020. But despite that, we're in about just a tick under 200 buildings now.
Yeah.
And a healthy pipeline, and we're really excited about
Well,
the future.
we're excited to have you as a partner at Experience Care. I know you're not on the dev team, but is there anything on the roadmap in 2023 in terms of functionality or UX or added features that you expect to be rolling out for SchedulePop that you're also excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's a few things. One, we just rolled out just rolled out our dashboard. And we rolled out, we just call like each little item on the dashboard, like you can call them a tile or a widget. So we just rolled that out with the first widget, but we have ideas, like I've like sketched out and mocked up, and then the team has really like come up with many more ideas than me for like the next 17 widgets. And so we're working on all of those as we speak. And what our focus groups told us was there was a lot of need to be able to, with the way the dashboard works, you can run it across any time frame you want for any and you can cherry pick and select whatever buildings you want from your group, and it'll show you all the data based on that. And you can run a time frame not only just in the past, but like for the future, so that you could see things like, okay, what's my agency spend going to be in the current quarter based on what they have scheduled? What is our star rating tracking to be based on what's scheduled? How many open shifts are there in this district? Maybe I need to go in there, and then everything's actionable. So that's a big thing for us that we're working on.
As we start to wrap up, Ben, I want to ask you, and in your interaction with focus groups and long-term care, what's been the most surprising benefit of long-term care customers of yours when they start to integrate with SchedulePop? Was it the reduced cost in agency that they didn't expect? Was it the shift coordinator's satisfaction of working with this new tool? What's something that surprised you, but also surprised your customer? Like, oh yeah, we really hit the nail on the head here.
Well, my favorite story to tell about that is I went along with our head trainer. She was training a building in Eastern North Carolina, not too far from where I live. So I just drove out there to sit in, and we were doing the training, and there were a couple of people being trained, one of which was the DON, and she had already downloaded the SchedulePop app, and everything was set up and live. It was kind of just really just almost a refresher to really get them going with the features. And they had the system on like a giant monitor on the wall, and we're sitting there, and in the middle of the training, her phone went off, and we saw her, she glanced at it, and you could see her seize up, and then she started her eyes started moving around, and like you could tell she's trying to figure out, how can I get out of here? And hey, what is going on? What happened? Are you okay? And basically she said, someone just called out. And we're like, okay, perfect. Don't panic. Open. And so we told her, like, look, open up the SchedulePop app on your phone. And she recorded the call out, just like we were just showing on, just now on the screen share. And then the hook was out in the water. So we're like, okay, you don't have to worry now. And so we went back to the training. And so we're training in the live system. And so we started just going through la-di-dee, la-di-da through the stuff. And all of a sudden, like a little notification just popped in, just like right up in the corner. And we're like, oh, go click on that. And so she clicked on it, and someone had picked up the shift. So that is like the key. That's the magic of the whole thing that we try to, I wish I had just like was, recording that whole session to see, because that's what we really preach to people is possible. It was really cool to be sitting there when it happened, and she was just so relieved. She didn't have to do anything, and she filled that internally. Now, she might have had to sit through our whole training session, and then what if she had, didn't have that feature, and she might have run out of the room and called the agency.
Yeah. I love the story, especially because, anyone who's been over to your website, schedulepop.com, or checks out the integration with Experience Care sees that your tagline is staff scheduling made easy, right, for everyone. And so the fact that she experienced it, but you also got to experience it kind of as a fly on the wall and got to see how much of a difference it made in her life is really cool. Ben, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think is pertinent or of interest for long-term care facilities? And I really appreciate your time joining us in LTC Heroes.
No, I think we've hit on a lot of the big things. I'd say you're asking about things moving forward, where we're starting to meet with our focus groups and really talk about, we're trying to see beyond, we know, it's hard to say, like, see beyond the staffing crisis, but what's coming next. And we think that, acuity-based staffing is going to be a big thing. And, we feel like that's something we can work on with our partners like Experience.care, pulling that information over and using that to help the buildings, not only just fill the shifts, but schedule to the patient needs. So that's an area where we want to, add functionality. We're excited about that.
I appreciate you sharing your story, Ben. It's not every day that on the podcast I get to talk to someone who comes from, the social club, nightlife world and is making a difference in long-term care. I've been to 10 conventions this year, and I know how much of an impact agency has hurt people whose bottom lines are already thin, whose margins are already thin. So having a partner with SchedulePop and making a difference in long-term care, I know I'm not alone when we say we appreciate it.
Great. Well, no, I appreciate you, and really, very thankful to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ben. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.